We had 110 tractors on our lot pre-pandemic. By I think it was the first of 2022, middle of 22, we had 4 sitting on a lot and couldn't get equipment.
That was the voice of Chuck Doss. Chuck leads a variety of businesses in Union City, Tennessee, including Inco Ag, Bobcat of Union City, and the robotic trailer manufacturing operation, L&O Manufacturing. Chuck began his journey in the church before making the leap into the world of business and has continued to grow from there. Welcome to 40 by 45, the West Tennessee Business Podcast, sponsored by Tennessee Industrial Printing. Welcome to the show, Chuck.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Chuck, let's start with some context for the audience. Can you do a brief description of maybe the 3 main businesses that you're running right now?
Right now, it would be Inco Ag, which is irrigation, land clearing, and field tile installation company in the agriculture business. And so the second one would be where we are today in a retail equipment dealership, mowers, tractors, Bobcat construction equipment, and steel handhelds.
Okay.
And then the third would be trailer manufacturing business, L&O Manufacturing, that we started in 2021.
Yeah. Lots of different paths there. It's
Sure.
Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of synergy between them, really.
Absolutely.
Because if someone's doing farm work, they might need a Bobcat.
They'll need a tractor or a mower. And
they got to have to get it somewhere.
Absolutely. So why not me?
That's right. That makes sense. Now, you've started a lot of businesses we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to start with something that your friend Joe said.
Okay.
I often think about Chuck as an Imagineer. You know, Disney has Imagineers, and I often think Chuck sort of fits in that category because he is constantly imagining other things and things that would enhance his company or enhance his employees, and a vision for that next thing that he may be looking to do.
I've never heard anybody outside of Disney be referred to as an Imagineer before.
Okay.
So are you familiar with what Imagineers are?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So,
absolutely.
So, how does that quote strike you?
Okay. I mean, I've heard, I guess, serial entrepreneur, but I've never heard it put quite like that.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. And Joe's a dear friend. Appreciate him always helping me and being a part of my life. But that's where I probably get the most enjoyment is dreaming. In a brainstorming session is where I get a lot of satisfaction.
Yeah.
And just dreaming a bit. I feel like I'm able to see things that, my wife and I were building a house, and I could stand at the street, look at the yard, and see a house there. She can't. She's got it. Now we're starting to see it come together. We've been working on it this year. And so that, I feel like that imagination in my mind, I'm able to kind of see things that aren't necessarily there. I wouldn't say I have a crystal ball by any stretch, but I'd like to believe that some of the things that I've dreamed have come to reality, and they're affecting people and their families, and they're able to provide for their families and provide a future, and actually come sit in my office and dream with me too. And that probably gets my heart and blood pumping more than anything.
Well, and when we were talking, you had said that had turned into a bunch of businesses.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And you had said something, there was a lot of LLCs at some point.
There's several. Mm-hmm.
Do you want to run through?
I do. I did make a list since you asked me to take a look at that, and it kind of made me, I was halfway embarrassed by how many, but it was really just kind of looking through things. And if I could kind of go back to the reason why I guess all of these are in place is when I was 38, my mother passed away. And a lot of things that I'd been dreaming of and talking, I talked a big game. And I realized at that point, if I were to die the age that my mother died, then my life was more than half over. Okay. So there's a comedian that says, it's Billy Gardell was his name, and he's a comedian. He says, I played a really poor first half. So I kind of used that. And then with my mother's passing, kind of thought, you know what, I've talked a whole lot about what I wanted to do and wished I would have done. And so the term put feet on it kind of came into play. And so I started saying yes a whole lot more and started working on dreams to make them reality. So that's kind of a precursor to this. So Dogwood Hill Enterprises, do you want me to explain any about it?
I think just run through them.
Dogwood Hill Enterprises, Purchase Point Partners, Vandalay LLC.
Vandalay, like Jerry Seinfeld?
Oh, yeah, that's where that came from. That's the name of that one. Butts and More.
All right.
Okay, which is a barbecue restaurant.
Well, I'm glad it's a barbecue restaurant.
Yeah, we're not getting in there. Centerpoint Business Solutions, Centerpoint Professional Services, Lucy Lane LLC, which is my two daughters' middle names, Northwest Tennessee Angel Fund, DT Multimodal, and Indiana Business Railroad Union City Terminal. So,
and it sounds like a lot of different things.
It's quite diverse.
Yeah.
I mean, I probably, if Riddlin would have been around when I was a kid, I'd have probably been on the poster.
Yeah.
Could have sold a lot of it. So, according to a lot of teachers that might have complained about me.
But you, like me, I might mention, started in the church.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So can you talk about the transition from church to business?
It was 2002 when I left the church, a full-time church, and I was a youth minister in Union City. And over playing softball on weekends, I began feeling like I was able to affect people's lives a lot more, have more influence on that Saturday than I felt like I was during the week full time. So I felt kind of the movement and the calling to a more secular situation. Helped start a church locally, helped lead worship for them for a little while, and they're doing, that church is doing well. Also, and but the transition is a little bit tough at times, just because I'd always felt called, but and back in the day, the calling said you had to be paid by a church, and really it hit me kind of between the eyes, and God just told me, Chuck, I take care of you, not the church.
Yeah.
So through that, I felt like, and I had developed a personal mission statement, which is to inspire and encourage faith through relationships. And, so, of course, a lot of that, it deals with the spiritual side of things, which is very important to me, but it's also faith in yourself, faith in each other, faith in relationships, those kind of things, that encouraging and inspiring those things but the transition was out of the church life. Started actually teaching golf lessons. Worked at a local golf shop, Pistol Pete's Pro Shop, which was, and Pete Witten. He's become like a second father to me. He believed in me when times were a little bit tough. So I text him Happy Father's Day on Father's Day. So just that kind of relationship was there. And he helped me through, gave me a job, part-time job, and allowed me to really kind of pursue some things. I started actually selling life insurance from a golf lesson that I was giving at the time, and then transitioned into financial advising, and then started at First Citizens National Bank, where I got to know Joe Ward very well, and was there for 6 or 7 years as a financial advisor. And then in 2012, the end of 2012, transitioned out of that from a W-2 lifestyle to self-employed.
And you had already started stuff at that point, and then it kind of became a full-time job?
I had, of course, it looks really glamorous when you own a business and living the American dream, so sometimes it's a nightmare. But, I had businesses, a small business, Dogwood Hill Enterprises was one that I started a long time ago. It was a piece part business that I had dreams of. Mm-hmm. And it was one of those things that when my wife and I would walk, I would talk about these big dreams. And I go back to my mother passing away and my wife saying, well, put feet on it, would you? Mm-hmm. And so I started putting feet on things. Yeah. And that was one of the things after she passed away, I started seeing some opportunities in some areas with irrigation in this area. Mm-hmm. So we started that in 2011 and Centerpoint Business Solutions. And what was happening, quite honestly, with my life was I was working till 12, 1 o'clock at night on side hustle things. Mm-hmm. And so getting up at 4:30, doing some more of that, then going into the office, mm-hmm. meeting with clients and working with people. And it just got to where it was just too much. And I got to a point I had to make a decision. Mm-hmm. And somebody asked me one day, said, so when are you going to quit and go do your own thing? I was like, what do you mean? They're like, well, we know a lot of good things are happening and whatnot. I said, well, it's all good. I love relationships.
Yeah.
So that's where that led to.
Yeah. Direct Shred is a family-owned and operated commercial and residential shredding company based in Jackson, but serving all of West Tennessee and Memphis. If you need secure, certified, document, or hard drive destruction, contact Direct Shred today at directshred.com. Haven Insurance Partners is a locally owned independent insurance agency. Haven takes your risks, whether personal, commercial, health, or life, and approaches many different insurance companies on your behalf. This allows them to find different coverages and price points for you. At Haven, they believe you deserve options, and they want to help you explore those. Visit haveninsurance.com to find better coverage today.
Special thanks to our season sponsor, Tennessee Industrial Printing.
Well, and speaking of relationships, you mentioned your personal mission statement a minute ago. Mm-hmm. Not many people have a personal mission statement. I don't know if you've identified that or not, but I don't know too many people who walk around that can bring that up in a conversation.
Right.
So can you talk about why you developed that? When did you develop that? Why did you develop that? How does that affect what you do on a daily basis?
Okay. So it was at my time when I was a youth minister, and the Tennessee Baptist Convention had a leadership for youth ministers, leadership. I don't know exactly what it was called, but at the time I was part of that. And through that, we did all the studies on what your personality traits and different things like that. And, working with different people and how that looks. And they encouraged us to develop a personal mission statement. So that's where that came from. And it was probably in the 2001 area,
Has it changed?
Actually, no.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't something that was just strictly ministry related. It was life related.
Yeah.
And, it's about really, to me, trying to inspire and encourage people to be faithful in whatever you do. Okay. And to whoever you're with.
Yeah.
And to have faith in what God can do, the strengths that he gives you and puts in you, and be faithful to those. In all relationships, it doesn't matter where you are, that's what I thrive on, are those relationships.
Yeah.
I get a lot of my emotions from my mother. I can cry at a drop of a hat. You can show me a picture of my grandkids and I'll probably tear up, and I blame Carolyn, my mother, for that. And I hope that's one of my strengths. And I hope that's what people see would be one of my strengths, that I'm passionate and I'm an emotional guy.
Yeah.
And I'm very competitive. So hopefully those three things are what have given me what some would say are success, and what I would feel like successful too.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I have another clip from Joe that I'm going to play.
Oh, gosh.
The first thing that I think about when I think of Chuck is a friend. Chuck is, and something that stands out to me about him is he is a very caring individual. He cares about, and I know this because he and I have had some very in-depth conversations about this, but I've seen Chuck emotional, honestly, when it comes to his employees, his team members. They mean a lot to him, and that's something that you can read from him visually.
I later said to Joe that I hope my friends will say stuff about like that about me one day. How does that, between the mission statement and that being something that you care about so much, how does that work out here in your workplaces?
You want the good or the bad part?
Or both? Give me both.
Okay. The bad part, let's start with the bad so we can kind of finish up smiling. Yeah. The bad part is that I'm passionate and caring to a fault sometimes of getting taken advantage of, and by folks that don't care and don't have that compass, that moral compass. And, so I try to trust people and try not to think about how someone else has treated me when I deal with the person that's in front of me. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's difficult.
Yeah. You mentioned that it sometimes causes a fog.
Absolutely.
The word you used
sure. It fogs and gets in the way of what's right in front of you. And that's not fair to the person that's right in front of you. Yeah. Is kind of the way I put it. And that's why I'm probably susceptible of getting taken advantage of at times. But, if the worst thing that happens to me is that I get taken advantage of from trusting more people,
you're willing to take that.
Yes, I'll take that risk every day because I want my grandkids, I want my kids and my wife, I want them to feel free from having to rely on past experiences that would taint the way that I relate to somebody that's sitting right in front of me. Mm-hmm. And that's why I say I don't think that's fair to the person that's in front of you. I want to give you the benefit of the doubt until you prove me wrong, and allow you to do that and dictate how my reaction is, even though, I try to preach to my girls and I will my grandkids of, the things that happen to you or the things that are 100% your fault that you get into, you're judged by the reaction that you give from that. Mm-hmm. And that will ultimately be how people judge you from here on forever. And some ways detrimental to success. And it will help launch you if you react correctly. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the way I put it is like on the football field, a couple guys are getting after it, get a little aggressive. One of them shoves a little bit, and then the next guy's the big shove. Who's the guy getting flagged? Right.
The second guy gets.
The second guy. Yeah. And he wasn't the initiator, but his reaction caused not only trouble for him, but would cause trouble for the entire team too. So you got to think about those things too. Does that kind of give you, does that make sense?
So, let's move into the businesses a little bit.
Okay.
Then. So going back to Inco Ag for a moment, this business has had several pivots, and that wasn't an irrigation joke. But can you talk about pivoting? Because when we talked, and then when I talked to Joe, pivots have been a key part of Inco Ag's success.
Sure, absolutely. When we first started, the name Inco, it comes from industrial and commercial. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Inco, we're real creative with that one. So Inco LLC, Inco Maintenance was the LLC. Because we were dreaming about how to help businesses with their maintenance issues. For a mom and pop store that can't afford a full-time maintenance guy, how does somebody change a light bulb, fix a sink? They don't need to call for an emergency at that point, but you may need somebody on an occasional basis for maintenance. Mm-hmm. So we started with that, but then irrigation started popping up. It became very popular. The drought of 2011 put that on the map. So we started actually doing some maintenance on some different irrigation systems because of relationships that I had with some growers and some farmers and landowners. So we started doing that. And then looked into becoming dealers, and then Ranky Irrigation out of Deschler, Nebraska, we made a phone call, and the guy said, well, that's funny. We've been looking for you. They had been looking for someone to become a dealer in the West Tennessee, West Kentucky area. So it was really good timing there, and that was in 2011, I guess. And we sold 65 pivots one year down to like 6 the next year. So had some issues where input costs were rising, commodity prices were lowering. So the profitability was not there. And quite honestly, you would have some that have had irrigation for years that would say irrigation is a necessity. But in all actuality, it is a luxury.
Okay.
So, I talked to people back when we were hot and heavy. It was, I would stop and talk to someone, hand them my card, and they'd say, you're the irrigation guys, aren't you? I say, yeah. And he said, well, I trust the good Lord. He's going to provide the water I need for my crops. I said, I get that, I trust the good Lord too, but I also feel like you need to control what you can. And that's where our slogan in that business comes from, Inco Ag Irrigation. It's not how much, it's when. Because the average is the average. It's always normally going to be about a certain amount every year, wherever you are in any climate.
Yeah.
It's a matter of when.
Yeah.
It happens.
During the right season.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, because right now we've had some wet springs and wet times during the year, but it hasn't come at the correct time when the plant has needed it. So, and that was 2000, I guess 14, 15. Started drilling well, or in the kind of the well business there, and just to control the main piece of what we were doing.
Were each of those pivots really clear that they needed to happen, or was there some chance happening that pushed you towards that next phase?
Some chance, some by just noticing a need, and then being competitive enough to say,
I can do that.
By gosh, I can do this.
Yeah.
And I can sell it. Because to me, that's all about the relationship. I try to tell our folks all the time is if you covered up the name brand, would that customer still buy from you? Okay. How do you get that customer to enjoy the relationship with you enough so that regardless what the brand is, they want to buy from you? Yeah. People want to do business with people that they like, and it's that's what we're after, is just trying to build those relationships. So that's really what it is. But it kind of honestly, I was working with some guys, and they were talking about wanting to do some more irrigation, and I asked to talk to them, and this was when I was still financial advising, and we started that process and started down that road of working with them. And that was really the first couple of irrigation rigs we sold. Yeah. And it was very infant at that time, but it was all out of relationships that I had previously with some growers. So that evolution was somewhat seamless. Like I said, it caused for a lot of, before I left a full-time gig, I don't even want to know how many hours I worked. Just knew that it had to be done.
Tennessee Industrial Printing is West Tennessee's commercial printer. They have built their reputation on delivering on time, on budget, and on target. Tennessee Industrial Printing delivers on complex printing projects, mailing projects, and fulfillment services. With a fleet of presses, they have positioned themselves to handle small and large volume jobs. I've been able to work with tips with many of my clients' projects, and they have delivered every time. Wayne and his team have continuously invested to ensure that they are an efficient and effective option for commercial printing. Start your next project at tipsprints.com. That seemed like a pretty natural evolution of things, but where do you get into robotic trailers from then?
So 2020, 2021 range, there was some groups around here that were getting involved in the rent-to-own business. And so I had an empty building on the north side of Union City that was kind of a catch-all. It was just that drawer you have all
giant junk drawer.
Mm-hmm, yeah, absolutely. So, and it just kept getting on my nerves every time I would go over there, and because our guys, they're great. We had great guys, but and I guess I'm the same way. If you look at my desk, I just kind of throw things to the side until I might need it, or I'll maybe need it later. And so, long story shorter, had some folks needing trailers. Mm-hmm. Had a buddy of mine that I duck hunt with that was in transition in his life, and he was a manufacturer by trade and a plant manager in different places. So he and I just got to dreaming a little bit, and sitting in my office right here talking with another buddy of mine from locally. I was like, what would it be if we started building some trailers? They said, well, you probably won't have any trouble getting rid of them. And so we started diving into that need. I started telling folks what I'm thinking about doing, and the people in that space I started getting calls, texts, when are you going to have some trailers? Well, we haven't decided this yet.
We haven't made any trailers yet.
I had one guy that found out I was thinking about it. He was literally calling me every week.
Wow.
Have you got started? I was like, man, I don't even have a piece of metal yet.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we found out was that this need was really big and great. Mm-hmm. And so when we started the process, we joined the National American Trailer Association. Okay. And within 2 days, we had 3 calls from one in South Carolina, one in Indiana, and another, I think it was even out in Kansas, needing utility trailers. And I was like, well, we haven't started yet.
Yeah.
They're like, when will you have them? I mean, they literally would have taken what we had.
That's crazy.
And so the thought process got going. How many can we build a day? What are the people we need? And it was like, and this was right around the pandemic. Mm-hmm. Okay. So there were issues with starting to be issues with finding workers, finding people. And one of the biggest things to me is if I'm going to manufacture something, I need it to be quality if it's going to last. Mm-hmm. And so the consistent part of a weld is the best thing for anything that you're welding, if it's consistently welded. So we felt like the most consistent thing would be robotic, because it's going to be the exact same every time. Mm-hmm. As long as you put the product in the jig, the raw product in the jig correctly, it's going to weld the exact same place and time, and you can calculate it.
Yeah.
At one point we were welding a 10-foot trailer in about 3.5 minutes.
Okay.
So, now that's not start to finish, but it's, you still have some post robotic welding to do and putting other things on it. But, I just kept saying, we got to get robots, guys. Let's find a way to do it. Mm-hmm. And worked with some manufacturers of robotics and local group Airgas that provides some of that those services, and got in touch with their folks and had people come in and just started building trailers. And we needed a name. I guess I can get into that right now,
sure,
if that's okay. We needed a name, and we fought through several. I thought, okay, with my background, and my mother wouldn't be too proud, we thought of Haul Yeah Trailers. So I figured that would be really cool in a commercial. But keeping true to what family means to me. Mm-hmm. At the time I had 2 grandkids, Oliver and Louie. Mm-hmm. And so I used the L of Louie and the O of Oliver, and we called it L&O Manufacturing.
Yeah.
And I gave my dad, who's right there, the trailer number 001. So I gave that to him.
Yeah. So
just because I want it to be a generational affecting thing. So I wanted to give that to my dad as that's part of just saying a little bit of thank you to what he did for me, and how he's instilled in me a work ethic that goes beyond clocking in and out.
Yeah.
And then to honor my grandkids with naming it after them and help people understand that I want this to last forever. And these children mean more to me than anything in the world. Mm-hmm. So me putting their name on this means I want it to be quality and I want it to be right every single time.
Yeah.
So
you mentioned the pandemic a minute ago and I could imagine with, we're sitting in your equipment dealership and with reselling, irrigation parts. And then a lot of things having parts. My business doesn't have parts. We just have
Right.
people.
Right.
I could imagine the pandemic was a problem.
Very much so.
Can you talk about going through and some of the equipment issues and stuff?
I would say, we had 110 tractors on our lot pre-pandemic. By I think it was the first of 2022, middle of 22, we had 4 sitting on a lot and couldn't get equipment. When we became Bobcat dealers in first of 23, there were no construction pieces available at all.
Even years after.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Absolutely. And it just wasn't available, wasn't there. And of course we had people who would get so upset over their tractors not being ready. We couldn't get the part and no one could tell us when the part was going to be there. Yeah. Do you remember, the ship that got twisted up in the canal?
Yeah.
Okay. All I could think of was that when it showed the picture, I thought, there are my parts.
Yeah.
That's going to be held up even longer.
Yeah.
So, and the people, some were gracious with it. And, finally, I was on the phone with somebody one day and it hit me. I'm like, I don't want your tractor here any more than you do. I don't get paid until it's finished. And good, bad, right, wrong. It just hit me wrong. Something hit me wrong. And I said, sir, if I could eat a piece of metal and crap out your part, I would do it.
Yeah.
But I'm physically not capable.
Yeah.
So that kind of was a buzz around here a little bit.
I bet that was
and
fun.
Of course, my wife said, you did not say that. I was like, I did. I probably shouldn't have. But you know what? It painted a picture of I just can't make it happen.
Yeah.
As much as I want to, I can't do it. So, and a lot of it goes back to relationships at that point, is that if you've been a trusted person and told the truth, regardless of if it hurt or not, you just got to stay in communication as much as possible and tell the truth. If it does hurt, don't give, what is it? The phrase, I've always thought that unmet expectations are a detriment to a relationship. And those expectations can be voiced and unvoiced expectations. So if you under promise and over deliver is the key to it.
You might not know that I started my educational journey at a community college after high school, which allowed me to have some time to make decisions for my future and save money on gen ed classes. Jackson State Community College provides that opportunity and many others for students in West Tennessee. Visit jscc.edu to see all of their educational and career building opportunities. ATA is a leading advisory and tax accounting firm. From tax planning and client accounting services to advisory and assurance, ATA has got you covered. With locations in Jackson, Dyersburg, Union City, Milan, Paris, Memphis, and Henderson, and more outside of West Tennessee, they have an expert nearby to support you. As ATA says, let's amplify your business together. Contact them today at ata.net.
Special thanks to our season sponsor, Tennessee Industrial Printing.
What are some future trends affecting you in some of your business lines? There's future trends, especially the agriculture side. You've talked about some of the industry trends, pricing, and things that are affecting you.
Sure. I mean, there are price increases sometimes monthly.
On your parts?
On some, not necessarily the parts, but on your whole goods, tractors and CUE stuff. It's every year you can pretty well count on some type of price increase for the most part. during a certain time when we were just getting going, literally metal prices when we were starting our trailer manufacturing was daily.
Wow. Okay.
So one of the things that we wanted to be different with in the trailer business was in that industry, there was orders, and then they would send a invoice that would have a surcharge on it based on where the metal was at the time of manufacture. Okay.
Okay.
And I did hear of a 90% surcharge on a order of trailers to somebody. We did not and don't surcharge.
Yeah.
Okay. We base our manufacturing on what the time frame is, and we were trying to work things that way and try to change things a little bit so that the retailer could actually know what they're getting, what they can sell it for before they get it.
Sure.
And because if you've sold a trailer at $2,000 and your cost is now $2,700,
yeah,
that's an issue.
Yeah. You're not going to be in business much longer.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, but that was very difficult to navigate, and of course the parts, the many things that just go into what we do. I mean, and I guess with the pandemic, it changed so much with how you do things, the personal touches.
Yeah.
So that was, of course, difficult for everybody.
Yeah. Now, you had mentioned that every day you should think or act or talk to like 3 professions. Mm-hmm. Would you tell me what that phrase is and kind of explain it?
So it's at some point of the day, I need to think or talk to or talk to a attorney, an accountant, or a banker in my business world. An attorney, just keeping out of trouble, keeping out of, things that you don't see ahead, or people, the discrepancies on items, agreements that you have to sign, and accountant, of course, with taxes and making sure you're doing things right, because you can't do things 100% right. They change things so much that you literally can't do things right. Banker, of course, thinking or talking to a banker, getting their advice. That world has changed, about 15 years ago or so with the Frank Dodd Act, where all of those things changed, where it went from talking to a banker like Joe years ago, where I could say, man, I need this piece of equipment. And all they'd say is, write a check, we'll figure it out. Those days are somewhat gone because of the different regulations and different things you have to think through and think about. Government stuff. I've got a mentor and a friend of mine that has said, Chuck, government is your greatest competition. And I didn't quite fully get that until he really explained it to me later on. He said, they are the only competition that can come in and shut your doors. The rest of the market competition is based on pricing and service and how you take care of people. But that aspect of it is, it's fun, but also sometimes there's challenges to it as well, because I'm professionally none of those and not as smart as any of those, so I try to make sure that I got all of those on speed dial. That'll answer my call.
Yeah, that personal relationship.
Sure. And that's why I say many times if I'm speaking to entrepreneurs one-on-one or in a class setting and doing a presentation, I bring up those 3 relationships and hammer those. Yeah. Because if they don't have those as friends or some type of colleagues, they need to make them. Because at some point you're going to need them. Yeah. Whether it be for contract negotiations or simply looking over a contract that should be half a page, but somebody has written it 10 pages. Yeah. And I, being probably ADD or not losing my train of thought and chasing rabbits and squirrels, reading through something like that is not very good reading is a challenge. So it's those relationships are extremely important. And as you get to know those folks, you're able to think like they would.
Yeah.
And because you've heard them answer those questions or give you advice in situations that keep popping up daily basis. Yeah. So,
all right, let's go into a lightning round.
Okay.
And I'm hearing like a little lightning effect. Okay. If you had to recommend 3 books to a young entrepreneur, what would you recommend?
Do I have to keep it at 3?
If they're real good, I'll let you go.
Okay. From Good to Great.
Oh, yeah.
By Jim Collins. It's a really hard read, though, for anybody like me that can't keep focus sometimes. So From Good to Great. John Maxwell's stuff is good. 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Okay. That's one I haven't read yet.
Okay. Robert Kiyosaki. That kind of changed my thought process of, when you look at a balance sheet, it's left side, right side. Okay. Income, expenses. Okay. So what is a true asset for you is what he was trying to picture. If I can sum it up in one sentence, is how do you think of what a true asset is? And an asset should spit income. Okay. Butterfly Effect, Andy Andrews. Okay. It's a good one. The Fred Factor is a book about a guy, just an ordinary guy. Okay. And he had such an impact on people that there was a book written about him, The Fred Factor, that he impacted them so much in a positive way, and that everybody remembered Fred. Everybody came across. Yeah. Regardless of what their occupation was, regardless of where their social status was, whatever political view, whatever, it didn't matter. He was positively affecting them. So that was a big deal. Who Moved My Cheese? That's
classic.
And one that I've just been reading is Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. Okay. It talks about what is your time worth, and who can do those things that are not as productive. So how can you hire, let's say your time's worth $50 an hour. Okay. So if you're doing something that's a $10, $15 an hour job, how do you buy back your time by finding someone to do those things? Yeah. Okay. So that your full time is worth $50 an hour. Yeah. So that's your value. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the essence of it, is how do you create that mindset, move your mind to those things and really seek out those items. So sorry about the long list.
No, but you're good.
I couldn't just pick one. Yeah. So
what when are you having the most fun in the business?
When? I've thought about that, and I think, when I'm dreaming, of course, when all the businesses are doing well and everybody in there is happy, we're laughing, we're cutting up, things are profitable.
Oh yeah. I have a friend who says everything's funny when you're making money.
Oh, no doubt. There's a lot of laughs. Yeah. But it, so I guess that just cranks me up. But when I'm sitting in this room with everybody and dreaming, what can we do? They know I'm not afraid to go out on a limb now. If they come up with an idea that we can scale it and figure it out, they know I'm in. Yeah. As long as I can convince Joe.
Yeah. To back you up.
Joe and some of the other banking relationships as well. So
if you had to start all over again tomorrow, what are you doing?
Well, if I started business over, I'd scale it a little bit different. Almost everything I've done has really kind of taken off. And instead of growing through profit, I would borrow.
Interesting.
Okay. So, and just to go ahead and get in the space and do it. Yeah. What I would probably do is scale back, grow through profit, so that when things turn down, if the market turns down, which they have, then it's a lot more, you get better sleep at night, so to speak. And I guess that's, if I had to start my business career over of owning my own business, that's what I'd do. And to probably, from a partnership perspective, have a better laid out plan of action with partnerships, people I work with.
Yeah.
Do a little better job of my due diligence. That's just being blatantly honest with that.
What's the best advice you ever got?
I've got a couple.
Okay.
My mother, she said, perfect practice makes perfect. Because she was trying to teach me piano and I was in there playing chopsticks. And she said, Chuck, you're not practicing. I was like, yeah, I'm practicing. She said, it's not perfect practice. So, and two, one of the things that she always asked me was when I wanted to steer the station wagon that we had, the Griswold station wagon that we had, I would say, can I slide over and steer? And she said, can you keep it between the ditches? So that's kind of a line I say is like trying to keep it between the ditches right now without trying to jerk it in the ditch.
That's right.
Mr. Robert Kirkland, who was a tremendous entrepreneur from Union City, Discovery Park, has given back immensely. He said, be selfish. And as a Christian, that hit me weird, you know. But then I came to understand what he's talking about is being selfish for getting all you can for the products that you and services that you give, and being selfish with your time, with your family. And don't worry about what somebody says. Okay. So being selfish with it, because the more successful you are, the more you can give back, the more you can do for others. And some of that, you've got to be selfish to get to that point. Mike Cox, he told me one time it's lonely at the top, Chuck. And he would encourage me by just stay in there with it. If it's there, because the way that he put it was, you can't tell somebody that you work with, I don't know that I can pay you Friday unless an invoice gets paid. And until I felt that, I really didn't understand, you just can't tell everything to everybody. And you kind of got to keep things to yourself and do your best to navigate it. Yeah. And so I would say that those, those things have helped me focus, more at times. And then also the, make sure you're keeping track of your greatest competition, which is the government.
Absolutely. All right. Last question. And I hold it for last for a reason.
Okay.
What do you hope your legacy is going to be, Chuck?
Oh, man. I hope that somebody would say when they saw what my personal mission statement was, that I was true to that. And that's what I would hope somebody says about me, that I was faithful to a fault, believed in people, and expected great things out of people because I really believed in them. And that's really what I would hope my legacy is. Not that I make a bunch of money, although I hope I make enough to, if it gets too cold, I can burn it to stay warm. However, I hope that my family knows how much I love them, my friends, how much I appreciate them. And that's really what life is about, is sharing life with the people around you and not neglecting that.
Chuck, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming. It's been a nice trip down memory lane a little bit.
Thank you for listening to 40 by 45, the West Tennessee Business Podcast. This series is produced by Adelsberger Marketing, directed, recorded, and edited by Eric Archer, branding by Katie Howerton, motion graphics by Ricky Santos, and it is produced and hosted by me, Kevin Adelsberger. If you are interested in creating a podcast for your business, connect with us at adelsbergermarketing.com. Subscribe to 40 by 45 on your favorite podcast platform for future episodes, and thank you again for listening.